Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Ashlyn. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm pleased to be your host for today's session as a part of Ryerson's virtual open house, which is taking place all of this week. And there are many sessions taking place across the event, so we encourage you to check out our website to sign up for any and all sessions that may be of interest to you. To start, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land. Toronto is in the dish with one spoon territory. The dish with one spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. Ryerson has shifted to an essential services model to help prevent the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have put together a series of virtual sessions in order to share information and connect with you. Ryerson is working diligently to provide students with fulsome experiences while maintaining the health and safety of our community. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping Zoom tips. First, we encourage you to ask questions. You can do this by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. A dialog box will pop up and you can type out your question there and send it to us. We have many faculty members and staff members, including students on the back end, awaiting those, so feel free to ask any questions. Also, if you are experiencing any audio or video issues, that is also where you're going to be submitting those issues with us. Please use that Q&A pod to communicate with us, and we will have a staff member there to assist you. Also, please note that you can arrange your screen any which way you'd like. It's not going to affect the way I see the screen or any other presenter sees the screen or how anyone attending this session sees the screen. So please feel free to move the screen any way which way you'd like to make yourself comfortable. Finally, this presentation will be closed captioned to ensure accessibility. If you require closed captioning, please select that option at the bottom of your Zoom window. And also note that this session is being recorded and will be available on our website on a later date. To start us off, I'd like to know who's joining us. Let me launch this poll right here. Perhaps you're a prospective student who is joining us, looking to joining us next fall. Maybe you're a prospective student looking to join us in a couple of years. Perhaps you're a university or college transfer student. Maybe you're a parent or guardian or even a teacher or a counselor. I see that about 70 or 80% of you have already responded to the poll, which is super helpful to us. Thank you. I'm going to close that right now and share those results. It does seem that the majority of you are prospective students looking to join us next fall, but we do have a wide array of others also at this session, some prospective students applying in the future, university college transfer students, and even some parents and guardians. So we're super excited to have you here. So I'd like now to introduce Andrew from Environment and Urban Sustainability to start us off in this presentation.
Well, super, thank you. As was noted, my name is Professor Andrew Millward, and I go by him, he, and his pronouns. And it's really a pleasure to have you join us today and learn a little bit about one of the Faculty of Arts' newest programs, Environment and Urban Sustainability. We're, in fact, I think only about 9 years old at this point, and I'm excited to report that I've been with the program since its inception. We have a lot of different contributing faculty members that you'll meet today virtually in our presentation. I'll be talking to you about their work, some of the exciting things that they and our students are involved in as we work toward thinking about better ways to develop and expand our cities. So Environment and Urban Sustainability was created really out of a need that we saw in the Faculty of Arts, and specifically in the Geography and Environmental Studies program at Ryerson, to bring students into a program who are passionate about environment and environmental issues, but perhaps didn't want to follow the traditional scientific line that many other schools had offered environmental science related programs in. So our goal with our program, and it's evolved and improved over the last number of years, has really been to focus on the development of what we call socio-ecological approaches to environmental sustainability. So if you're a student then who enjoys science, but maybe doesn't want to pursue that as your core focus, you do have a passion, of course, for the environment, and you also realize the very important social dynamics associated with how decision-making is done concerning the environment and how we move forward, then really the Environment and Urban Sustainability program is the right program for you. We go to the next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned, I've been at Ryerson for quite some time, and I actually predate the beginning of this program. I and several other faculty then were at the very early stages of developing its content, and I've served as its director for 5 years, took a small break, refreshed myself, and then have come back as the director again. So anyone joining our program in the coming years will work directly with me as the director of the program. In terms of my university teaching and research experience, I've been at the university, Ryerson University now for 15 years. And my teaching is focused on ecology, sustainability, and the use of geospatial technology. So some of you may be familiar with the term GIS, or Geographic Information Systems. That's something that I work with in my research and teaching extensively, and something that we're beginning to infuse more so into the toolkit of skills that our environment and urban sustainability students are developing. My research focus has been for the last 15 years on nature and cities, and more specifically then on something we refer to as urban forestry. So my goal then is really trying to understand how we can actually grow and expand trees in cities for all the benefits that they provide to our neighborhoods. And that takes on the perspective of more of a scientific understanding and modeling of different ecological benefits, such as carbon sequestration is one, and the value of nature in cities to help us address future issues of climate change. But alternatively, and perhaps of new interest in my research agenda, relates to the notion of environmental justice and how it is that nature is actually distributed with equity or in an unequal way across our cities, and what we can do collectively about that. So with that as a short introduction to who I am, I'm going to ask our moderator to go to the next slide. And I believe here we'll play our short introduction promotional video for the program.
Ryerson University is uniquely situated in downtown Toronto and is perhaps one of the most urban campuses in Canada.
Just by nature of the name of the program, we are focused on urban areas, and you can't get more urban than where Ryerson is located.
The Environment and Urban Sustainability program is housed within the Department of Geography and Environmental Studies at Ryerson University.
I just like the idea of being downtown and a part of that busy lifestyle.
It's just right in the middle of everything that you could think a city is like. And so that gives the students an opportunity to really understand how it feels to be in the middle of an urban center while studying the same type of environments.
I can leave Ryerson and be in like a completely different area. I can find nature not too far away from Ryerson. And it's kind of a neat place to be when studying environment and urban sustainability.
It provides great opportunities for students to go out in the Greater Toronto area and really use the city as a living laboratory.
I think the program focuses a lot on urban issues, and so being in such an urban setting kind of makes examples that we talk about in the classroom very realistic to our day-to-day lives.
So, where is nature? Where is that located? And sometimes we always think about that we have to drive to that or that's somewhere far away, when actually that exists right here in our own backyards.
Studying in a program like EUS really offers them an opportunity to grapple with those issues that are going to be front and center in our future.
EUS is a 4-year interdisciplinary honors degree that encourages students to become tomorrow's environmental leaders.
I think EUS is a program that is very current, so there's so many environmental issues that are happening right now. Being part of the program, you're kind of tapped into all those issues, and so I feel inspired to make changes and actively be involved in the environmental community.
Again, what we've done in this program is assess a lot of the problems and then looking at an opportunity for you to be able to go out there and solve them.
I think my favorite part is just to be with the like-minded individuals who just all want the same thing.
There's such a community among the EUS students. Everyone is more like a big family now. A student should choose EUS over any other program because it's so interdisciplinary.
You know, if you come into the EUS program, I think you'll have a lot of opportunities to pursue your own interests as they relate to the environmental field.
There's people throughout our program that have different passions that are able to link their passion to environmental studies.
There are some great professors, and everyone, they all come from their own background. They all have so much knowledge.
I came to university thinking that like professors, you don't talk to them, you don't get to know them, but that's absolutely not the case.
The EUS program admits fewer than 100 students per year, so we have smaller class sizes and we're able to keep in regular contact with our professors.
The program is a bit smaller than some of the other programs at the university. Students definitely have the opportunity to get to know their professors and learn more from them than just what you would learn in the lecture hall. You know, there are so many careers now that you could pursue with an environmental studies degree.
We are going to go out in the world and we want to make a difference in our communities.
If students were thinking about having something totally different and being right in the middle of the action, I think Ryerson is a good choice.
Visit our website to find out how you can study EUS at Ryerson University.
That's great, thank you. Well, I think that just watching that always reminds me of one of the most valuable reasons that I'm involved in this program, and that's really the fact that I'm so inspired by our students. So you can see that in much of what they spoke about and what they're doing. And as a faculty member in the department, it's just a real pleasure and an honor to work with students who are so passionate about making a difference and wanting to be involved actively in their communities. So before I get into a little bit about the program in some detail, I would like to pose a question. And folks, if you could please write your answer in the Q&A window. When I present or speak about the program in a non-virtual sense, I always like to ask students if they could identify one issue that they would like to be involved in finding a solution to as it relates to our current environmental challenges. So in this virtual sense, if you could type into the Q&A window, one issue that you would like to be involved in finding a solution to, environmental issue that is. Okay, and we'll revisit that in a moment then. One of our moderators will come on and provide a summary to us as, in terms of what you've indicated there. So why environmental studies? Why specifically environment and urban sustainability? Well, many of you, I think, who are on this call thinking about a program in the environment are likely looking at a variety of universities across Southern Ontario. Many have environmental related programs. So what I'd like to try to do is show you why the EUS program is slightly different and why it may be more suited, again, to those of you who are interested, of course, in the science, but also really want to embed the very important nature of the social element into environmental decision making. So as was pointed out in our video, we really see Ryerson then at the center, of course, of one of, if not, yes, Canada's largest city, that is Toronto. And we see the program then being situated really in a space where we think of it as a living laboratory. Walking outside then the university, you're immediately faced with all of the challenges and opportunities associated with an urban center, an active, thriving urban center that has with it, again, many environmental challenges, but also ones I think that we can look at in quite a creative way to determine future solutions for. So why EUS? To reiterate, I think it's really an important decision as it relates to a choice in where you want to be in school. And if you're interested in urban areas and excited about cities and realize, as many of us do, that cities are going to need to be the leaders in pursuing solutions to environmental problems, then where we're situated in the center of Canada's largest city is really a very appropriate location to do that. So the concept of living laboratory, one that's very important and one that we intertwine in many of our classes in terms of having students go out and be involved in the community, either through different processes that would have them collect data or interview, etc. So the next thing I wanted to say about the program specifically then is that while science, of course, needs to be part of any environmental studies or any environmental science related program, our approach to science is providing students with a baseline or core suite of scientific skills, but then allowing students to really pursue their own course as it relates to studying the environment. So that might be, in some cases, taking a bit more of a business focus. So with a foundation in science and environmental related issues there, branching out into different areas such as business, such as planning, such as architecture. And all of these other fields then can be pursued with our environment and urban sustainability degree through a suite of minors that are offered across campus. So we are part of, in EUS, the Department of Geography and Environmental Studies, and we have a sister program there called Geographic Analysis, which in fact is a program that offered the very first degree at Ryerson University over 30 years ago at this point. So our new program, of course, the one that you're here today to listen about, has learned a lot from that program, Geographic Analysis, including then having very important connections to industry, to nonprofits, to government, et cetera. And we really value then our professional associations that are involved with our programs and how they have provided really important input into how the program has been shaped and how we've tried to adapt it to various needs that are contemporary. So we're going to move into to talking a little bit about the overall first year, and then what types of careers exist in the program. And then finally, then we'll hear from our student association, followed by some question and answers that you're likely to put forward. So can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so at this point in time, I might ask our moderator then if there's any Q&A comments as it relates to an environmental issue that students and others on the call would like to be involved in finding a solution to.
Yeah, we had so many responses. Everyone is very active. So we had some interest in animal conservation, the acidation of oceans, plastic in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, racial injustice associated with climate change, single-use plastics, finding solutions to plastic pollution, how to adopt sustainable technologies, sustainable agriculture, and sustainability of our society while undergoing permanent damage, and forestry preservation. And
okay,
circular economy, they're still coming in.
Oh, super, super. Okay, great. Well, that puts a smile on my face, as you can see, because I know that in meeting with students like yourselves in the past, there's always lots of really important issues that are on the top of your mind. And I really think that there is a place in our program in environment and urban sustainability to pursue those interests and hopefully actually be a real part of some of those solutions. So thanks again for contributing there. Really interesting ideas and interesting concerns that you bring forward. So we see EUS as having a curriculum that really combines theory and a very rich practical experience. And if we cast our minds back to some of the things that were presented in our short video at the beginning of today's session, that practical experience, I hope, really came through as something we value significantly within the program, both as instructors, but also certainly from the perspective of our students and what they say they value most. So at Ryerson University in general, and I think this is fair to say across the board, we're a school that certainly values theory, but we also want to connect that theory to relevant activities and experience in and around our surrounding community. So many of the programs then across campus then really have that front and center as what they're seeking to provide and to allow their students to experience. And certainly EUS is definitely no exception to that. And that's something that all of us as instructors in the program, when we're designing our course outlines, think about how can we involve students in practice that really reinforces the theory that we're bringing to them in the classroom. So within EUS then, the social and human dimensions of environment and sustainability are something that we focus on really from day one. As I'll show you in a moment then, there are some core foundational courses that really enhance and bring out those ideas of that social and human dimension. And when we think about environmental issues, of course, and environmental issues that are caused by human actions, it's really our social systems and our ability to communicate, leverage science, believe science, go to answers that really are evidence driven, and bring that back into discussions to help everyone understand sort of baseline information. Which is really, really important. So underlying then that social and human dimension is something that's very rich in many of the classes that are part of our EUS program. We also look at, obviously, the complex ecological relationships of the natural environment. So a number of our core courses and courses that you would take, professionally related courses in our program, really help develop your understanding of ecological relationships, the importance then of how ecosystems need to be at a certain state to function and deliver many of the services that we as humans and other living beings really demand or require on the planet. So again, just coming to a very simple example from my own work, the importance of nature and vegetation, the idea that carbon dioxide is brought into plants in the process of photosynthesis and oxygen then is released, how vitally important that process is to us as human beings. And of course, obviously, the very important connections that has to climate related issues. So balancing competing interests to produce productive and sustainable communities. Again, that balance there, really critical, productive and competing interests. We can just look at many of the issues that we're faced with environmentally these days and think about competing interests being oftentimes a limiting factor for us to make progress. You know, there's always sort of the case made for continuing with perhaps a detrimental, environmentally damaging practice in industry because of its economic benefits. So we really believe in this program, as many of you, I'm sure, on this call do, that we really need to rethink a lot of our economic sort of ties to progress. Not to do away with economies altogether, but really reshape them from the bottom up and think about how we can reconstruct our society, we can reconstruct our economic activity to really be in concert with and perhaps even improve and support the environment. So again, that's another critical theme that enters into a variety of our teaching at EUS. Next slide, please. Okay, so many of you, I think, based on your responses to what environmental issues interest you and you'd like to be a participant in the solution to, understand the general concepts of sustainability. So in a very basic and perhaps traditional sense here, we're looking at the social component, the environmental component, and the economic component, where we have people, planet, and profit. Profit usually tied to a Western capitalist type of system in terms of how economies are run and what's sort of promoted. And usually, as I think that many of us are aware, in the past and certainly continuing today, then there is a lot of conflict between the environmental piece and the profit piece. So again, as I pointed out, as I mentioned a moment ago, then how can we rethink the necessary need to have economies that actually maybe are at least neutral or perhaps beneficial to the environmental systems that we all rely on for our own for the life-giving forces and resources they deliver to not only humans, but to all living things. More recently, and I'm glad this came up in the chat room, the notion of equity and the social piece, how we understand issues of environmental justice. Justice, again, I mentioned in my own work, is starting to look at the idea of how nature is distributed and often inequitably distributed across different neighborhoods, where neighborhoods that may have socioeconomic characteristics of lesser education among individuals living there, perhaps lower income, actually often have less access to nature. So that in and of itself is representative of an important environmental injustice and something then that the whole discussion of sustainability and environment is really moving to thinking again about the people and the social dimensions of what exists, thinking also about other dimensions of environmental justice that include representation. So we have the distributional piece that I spoke of about how a resource may be inequitably distributed. But we also have other pieces about who's actually at the table making decisions and thinking about whether the decision makers are actually representative of the communities they affect. So again, important thinking then that we're bringing into and ideas that we're bringing into much of our teaching in the EUS program. And this is also being translated into the research initiatives that a number of our faculty are taking on as it relates to the environment. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is how typically the economy, social, and environment have been brought together in discussions of sustainability. And that central area there, you can see where everything intersects is what one would call, or what one has traditionally called, sustainable. So here we're sort of giving, with the size of the circles, equal value to each of these three components. Next slide, please. The more contemporary, the more new thinking, though, really sees all of these things being nested within the environment, right? So the environment essentially having the greatest role, for the reason being simply that if our environment begins to fail, as it is in many ways, our social and economic pieces will inevitably fail. They don't exist outside of the environment, which, as was pointed out in the previous slide, when sustainability has been thought about, conceived, and talked about, it's really that intersecting piece then that became the focus of sustainability. And really, in more present thinking, the idea of sustainability has really evolved to think about the economy and the social environment being contained within the environment. So if we focus our efforts on sustaining the environment, at least preventing additional damage, and in many cases, we can all envision ways that the environment can be improved, inevitably then, so the social element and the economic piece will also be or can experience significant improvement as well. So I wanted to just raise this as a shift in thinking in terms of sustainability, really putting environment at the front and realizing then that a healthy functioning environment is essential for a healthy functioning social environment as well as economic environment. Next slide, please. Okay, so what I want to do now is show you or take you on a little bit of a virtual excursion as to what our students get up to in the program. Through this, you'll meet a few of our different faculty members as they conduct their research. So here we are looking at a few pictures of the Credit River watershed. From the headwaters in the bottom left, you can see some students in there investigating things, measuring things, etc., all the way down to the urban channelization that many of you have probably likely seen, where we see the two individuals in the top left slide. So watersheds, of course, then of great significance to human populations, and the Credit River, the Don River, the Humber River are all watersheds then that have important connections to Greater Toronto and are watersheds that have been very highly modified and altered by humans. So in each of these slides then we have different faculty working with students. The woman at the bottom is Claire Oswald on the ice there. She's one of our faculty members who does a lot of work with the Ryerson Urban Water Group. And among other things, she's very interested in the impacts of road salt. So the salt that we spread around in the winter to melt ice, the negative environmental impacts of that road salt on our waterways. And we have Dave Atkinson, actually the current chair of our department, in the lower center picture there, working with the student, again, in this case in a different watershed, but being involved there, I think, in measuring the temperature and pH of water in that river system. So lots of examples then of our students working with faculty, not just on their research projects here, but also in a classroom setting. So our senior level courses have students actually work toward designing their own projects that require them to go out in the field, like you see here, and collect primary data. So data, direct observations here from a particular natural system, watershed, the watershed in this case. Next slide.
The Living Lab at Ryerson is to put into practice some of our research interests and core beliefs around sustainability. We're incredibly proud of the work that our researchers do.
My research here at Ryerson University is focused on understanding how road salt moves from application on our surfaces, eventually into waterways and water bodies. And I try to understand this over different time scales. So my research group is involved in monitoring road salt levels in rivers around the Greater Toronto area. And from that information, we can actually infer the amount of time it takes for road salt to end up in our aquatic ecosystems. And one of the things that I think is so wonderful about this road salt reduction pilot study we're doing here on Ryerson campus is that we're treating the campus as a living lab. And we are trying to connect the research that our group is doing to an actual practical real-world application of how we can reduce road salt. When we lay road salt down on campus, that road salt dissolves in water and it runs off the surface into our storm drains. And those storm drains, actually the water ends up in our rivers and our lakes. And so the road salt is then going to impact the organisms that live in those systems.
Last year, February, I attended Smart About Salt training upon the recommendation of our department manager. We went there, learned a great deal about the initiatives across the province, really, and some best practices on reducing salt, both on pedestrian walkways and roadways. So brine is a liquid form of applying road salt, and we've managed to purchase the equipment. We're producing it in-house, on-site, on demand, and we're applying a liquid brine to the sidewalks and stairwells as a de-icer and an anti-icer in different situations. During this project, we've achieved bare pavement after each snow event with a 30 to 40% reduction in salt applied to the roadways.
So it's important that we're reducing road salt on campuses like Ryerson to demonstrate that we don't need to have excessive road salt use. When we have excessive road salt use, we're salting our fresh water and turning them into seasonal seas, which is extremely unhealthy for a lot of our key species like frogs, turtles, freshwater mussels, and fish. The Great Lakes region is home to over 200 species at risk, so it's important that we're trying to protect these waterways the best ways that we can, and reducing road salt on this campus is an excellent pilot to show that we can do what is necessary to protect them.
WWF Canada is a science-based conservation organization. Our partnerships with universities like Ryerson and their living labs ensure that we're putting research-based solutions forward.
It's a beautiful collaboration that's taking place between WWF, Ryerson Facilities, and Ryerson Urban Water. We're actually undertaking a pilot program together to test how much salt can be reduced and still maintain a safe and secure campus for our commuters in the Ryerson community.
Anywhere that we can reduce the amount of road salt that we put down to maintain safe road conditions is going to be a good thing for the environment. So starting on Ryerson campus may seem like a small step, but it will have an impact. There will be less salt getting into our storm sewers, our rivers, and our lakes. And what we learn here on Ryerson campus, we hope will eventually be useful for expanding road salt reduction more widely across our city.
So it's important for WWF to support research partners like Ryerson University to better understand how road salt and our application of it are affecting our ecosystems, and allows us to create better management plans to protect wildlife.
The Government of Ontario has committed to reducing road salts that impact our waterway. Pilots like these ensure we have solutions to ensure that promise gets kept.
We're incredibly proud of the Brine project, and Ryerson Facilities is leading the way on this initiative. The collaboration between World Wildlife Fund, Ryerson Facilities, and Ryerson Urban Water is a beautiful example of Ryerson as a living lab.
Great. Well, I think that's a great video as it profiles one of our important EUS, Environment and Urban Sustainability faculty members. That's Claire Oswald, who you saw there. She was also in the video you saw earlier. But I think that really emphasizes a number of important things about our Environment and Urban Sustainability program. One is we have really active, dynamic faculty members involved in important contemporary research issues related to the environment. Second of all, we're really trying to apply our environmental research and understanding really locally, and in this case, hyper-locally, to improving campus from the perspective of reducing the amount of road salt that's spread there during the winter. And the third thing to point out is our connection to other important organizations and to community members. So we heard from the World Wildlife Fund there as one example. And that really underscores the value that we see in our teaching and research of being connected to other community partners and organizations. And through those connections, then we're all able to make a bigger impact as it relates to our teaching and research. So here on the screen, you see air and noise pollution. And this is another area that one of our faculty members, Tor Oyamo, who's featured in the bottom left there, has been working on for several years. And in particular, then, his research has looked at the noise levels that exist in different areas of our city and urban neighborhoods. And his work's been profiled quite a bit in the news media. A lot of interest from Toronto Public Health in terms of the impact of noise and air pollution. And an important thing then also to recognize with regard to these forms of pollution is their distribution as well. So I talked about an equitable distribution of nature in cities. We also have some fairly strong correlations of high noise and air pollution areas associated again with neighborhoods of lower income, lower education levels, etc. So really important connections there to the environmental justice piece. Okay, next slide, please. Whoops, I think we were there. Yeah, the other direction. Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So land and soil, another important focus. Here we have two examples of both research assistants and a class out in the field learning about soil. Soil, as most of us are aware, can be a really important carbon sink from an agricultural perspective, thinking about how to maintain high soil carbon levels so that carbon, the speed at which it takes to get back into the atmosphere is reduced. So one way we can work on that obviously is through choosing or selecting different types of vegetation and learning more about how to assist that vegetation to grow successfully within urban environments. So that's a picture of me there with two of my research assistants. We're working actually down on a project at Exhibition Place, where among other things, we were working on different mulching applications around trees to try to enhance their ability to grow in fairly harsh urban conditions. So this area being connected to the Exhibition Place receives a lot of traffic from humans, a lot of trampling. And one of the bigger challenges for vegetation growing in cities is soil compaction. So here we are, we're investigating how compacted the soil is. And then after this investigation, then we treat this environment with mulch and come back at different time steps to monitor any improvement or alleviation in soil compaction. Next slide, please. A couple other things to raise here about city and regional building. Here we have two graduates of the program profiled as they've worked from a technological sense to build applications to help the Toronto Police find community resources. So important then to really highlight some of the research, some of the contributions coming out of the work of our senior students. And to the right here, we have another faculty member, Sarah Edge, who's involved in, among other things, looking at the e-transportation field and e-bikes, et cetera, as different ways in which people can select modes of transportation, especially in urban areas that dramatically reduce their carbon footprint. So by using e-bikes and scooters for smaller commutes, then thinking about how much carbon actually is kept out of the environment if those individuals had otherwise perhaps been driving cars to work. Next slide, please. Again, just to reinforce that practical, local, outdoor, experiential learning, here we have examples of students on field trips to the Credit Valley Watershed. We have Professor David Atkinson down there on the left-hand side down near the river, providing his lecture while students are standing above listening. And to the right then, we have some water being assessed for temperature and pH level, and students then taking notes on differences in temperature and pH. What they do in this field trip is really neat. They start at the headwaters of the Credit, so where a lot of the water is coming to the surface in the form of springs, and they follow it all the way to where the river itself enters into Lake Ontario, and talk about all of the impacts of human development as well as conservation issues and how all of those factors affect the quality of water. So at each of these stops then water quality is assessed and students then get a real connection to then our impacts as humans on this ecological system. Next slide, please. Okay, I mentioned I would virtually introduce you to our faculty, and we've met some of them along the way. This is our whole complement here of faculty, many of whom would be your instructors if you selected the EUS program at Ryerson. A couple of our newer faculty members actually come from Indigenous backgrounds and are beginning to teach classes at Ryerson about Indigenous issues, colonization issues, really having us think about the environment from an Indigenous perspective, which is really exciting, I think, as we expand and really try to work on our program to address the most pressing issues that face not only Toronto as it relates to the environment, but Ontario and Canada more broadly. Next slide, please. Okay, I mentioned I would say a little bit about what your first year would look like. So these first two classes then, environment and sustainability and sustaining the city's environment, the second one being taught by me, really are designed to provide that underpinning, that foundation to socio-ecological systems, as I spoke about. So the first course more generally speaks about environment and sustainability, where examples are used, of course, locally, but also regionally, nationally, and internationally. And the second course really focuses in on the perspective of cities and the environment, and how cities, as we know, demand so much from our surrounding environment to run all of our activities, et cetera. We're very much dependent on huge areas of land to support our cities and the activities that humans are involved within them. So not only do we think about cities and how they function, but we also take an important look at all of the various systems more broadly on a regional, national, and international level that are necessary for our current cities the way they're, at present anyway, designed and functioning for them to exist that way. Okay, academic writing and research and critical thinking, two classes then to really lay foundations for your skill set development as university students. So very important then in thinking about ways in which you would write at the university level, practicing those, conducting research, and of course, critically evaluating information, making sense of that information, distilling that information. So really improving upon your literacy as it relates not only to written material, but other forms of media that are quite prevalent right now in our lives in terms of how we access information and in specific about information about the environment. In your first year or two, you'll have lots of options for choice. So the social sciences and humanities, which are broadly all other courses offered through the Faculty of Arts, you'll have lots of choice there to develop interests. You'll be required to take 4 courses there. And then finally, 2 courses that are what we call professionally related. So as I mentioned, perhaps you have an interest in architecture, or you have an interest in business, and you want to blend that with your focus on environment in the EUS program. Well, those would be a great opportunity with those professional related courses to take a course in the business school or the architectural school. Of course, there are many others: science, biology, planning, etc., are other fields that are quite complementary, usually to interests that students have pursuing an environment and urban sustainability degree. Next slide, please. Okay, what types of careers can a program like this lead to? Okay, if there are any parents on our call, this is always an important question that parents have, especially when we meet with parents at career fairs. But certainly all of the students who may be considering this program are likely to want to know, where could this take me? What kinds of jobs might this lead to? So we've prepared a short list here. By no means is this an exhaustive list. But these are the type of careers that our program really lays a foundation for. Sustainable design. We even have students who are interested in sustainable fashion design emerging from a program like ours. Urban planning, education, conservation officer, getting into science and becoming a researcher, Perhaps you're interested in law, the legal system, developing policy, journalism, talking about science, reinforcing the importance of evidence-based decision-making, which is so vital that our media take that on as a challenge. Policy writing, researcher. Maybe you're interested in insurance and the whole idea of risk as it relates to changing climate and changing environment. Politicians, anybody interested in really affecting change knows that, involvement in politics then can be a very vital way to do that. Entrepreneurial and business activity. And of course, there are many careers that are yet to be created as it relates to the environment and our pursuit of better ways in which to live on this planet that's more reflective and sensitive of all the life-giving ecological systems that are supporting us every day. Next slide, please. Okay, at this point, I'm going to take the opportunity to thank you. It's been a pleasure to speak to you today, and we're certainly always open in the Department of Geography and Environmental Studies to speak to you about EUS, our Environment and Urban Sustainability Program, as well as our Geographic Analysis Program. So please take the opportunity to reach out. Thank you again, and I'll now pass it to a representative of our EUS Student Association.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a fourth-year student in the Environment and Urban Sustainability Program at Ryerson, and I'm currently pursuing a minor in Geographic Analysis. I'm very excited to be here today and to have the opportunity to speak to all of you. So I am the president of the Environment and Urban Sustainability Students Association. We go by USA for short. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about USA and as well give some insight into my experience in the EUS program and at Ryerson over the last 4 years. Next slide. So USA is a student-run and operated organization, and our goal is to promote the interests of the students in the EUS program through the planning and execution of events, initiatives, and to foster a stronger sense of community within the program and to the Ryerson community at large. One of our most recent achievements as a course union was winning first place in the Course Union of the Year awards across all of Ryerson. Next slide. So we host all sorts of events for EUS students, and they fall under 3 main categories: professional, academic, and social. Professional events like the annual environmental panel and career mixer provide valuable networking opportunities for students. Academic events like the sustainability fair connect EUS students with like-minded campus groups and provide volunteer opportunities for students. Social events like game nights and pub nights and first-year orientation events allow students to meet, mix, and mingle with their peers, creating a stronger sense of community and relationships in the EUS program. And this year, USA has been able to successfully transition all of our regularly scheduled events for the semester online in order to safely provide EUS students with events, programming, and engagement. Next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience in the EUS program and at Ryerson. So like I said, I'm a 4th-year student, and I have been involved with USA, the EUS Course Union, ever since 1st year. Through the planning and execution of our events, I have gained a very strong skills in project management, event planning, and communication, and have been able to form some very valuable connections with notable individuals from the environmental industry, such as members of WWF, Environmental Defense Canada, and the David Suzuki Foundation, just to name a few. And outside of USA, Ryerson also has so many unique sustainability and environmentally driven student groups that provide really valuable extracurricular experience for students looking to get more involved on campus. Some of them include the Good Food Center, Amplify Ryerson, Regenesis Ryerson, Enactus, and Micropub. Micropub is a really interesting one. They divert food waste from landfills through the process of vermicomposting, which uses red wiggler worms to digest food waste. And this program was actually started by an EUS student and has been incorporated into Ryerson's Social Venture Zone, which is an incubator for business startups. And again, there are so many other really great student groups at Ryerson. I don't have time to talk about them all, but if you do end up at Ryerson, I highly recommend checking them out and getting getting involved. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, which is a really big part of my student experience, back a slide. Yeah, is the Ryerson Career and Co-op Center and Career Boost program. The Ryerson Career Center offers networking and interview prep and will also help you with creating resumes and cover letters for job applications. Ryerson also has a Career Boost program where over the summer, fall, and winter semesters, they offer hundreds of student jobs. Last summer through the Career Boost program, I worked full-time at Ryerson's rooftop urban farm. This was a really incredible opportunity to work within the realm of urban agriculture, which is really in line with the EUS program. Currently, I am still employed through the Career Boost program, and I work part-time in Ryerson's sustainability office as a sustainability waste management intern. And this again is such a valuable experience for me and an incredible learning opportunity, as after university, I'm hoping to pursue a career within the realm of sustainability management. And I'm very thankful that I have that opportunity to get my foot in the door and have that foundational experience. So that's it from me. I'm going to pass it off now to Melanie, another EUS student, to talk a little bit about her experience in the EUS program.
Thanks, Grace. Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie. I am a third-year student in the EOS program, and I'm also the third-year rep and deputy of events on USA too. Unlike Grace, this is my first year on USA. Last year, I was not part of USA. I just wanted to be in the program and just do my own thing. But then through attending so many events that USA hosted, I'm like, wow, this is like a really great group of people, and I really wanted to get involved. And through USA, I have gotten so many opportunities. It's the reason why I'm here. So I'm very thankful for what USA has given me. And as an EOS student, I have learned so much. I think one thing that I really love about the program is the flexibility in it. I'm also pursuing minors in geography and social innovation. And a lot of the courses that I need to take in order to fulfill the minors also credit towards my major. So it actually is very easy to complete minors in this program if anybody is interested. You just need to talk to the program admin. I email Mindy on a regular basis to get all my ducks in a line and make sure that everything is going well. And just as Dr. Andrew Millward covered, is there's so many different ways that you can go with this program, that you can look through the Table 2 courses and the professional related courses. And I'm personally really interested in food and agriculture. So I kind of choose courses that are related to that. So I think that's really amazing about the EOS program. And even with the online school right now, a lot of the professors are very easy to connect with. They're really here for you to succeed. And I really appreciate that. I really love this program. And honestly, like many of you, I'm sure we're all very eager to get onto campus. And that's one thing that I also love about the EOS program is we actually have our own lounge, our own student lounge, the Geo Lounge. And I basically live in that lounge whenever we're on campus, and it's a great space to connect with students. I've done tree planting events, attended a lot of, again, these events that USA has hosted. So the opportunities to connect with professors, other students, and professionals in the field is honestly second to none, in my opinion. I absolutely love this program. But that's about it from me. So now I'm gonna pass it back off. I believe we're heading into Q&A if Ashlyn wants to take over for that.
Hey everyone, we only have about 2 more minutes. I do want to just plug some of USA's social for you. If you are listening in or watching from home, feel free to follow them to learn about all of their upcoming events. I'm going to ask one question, and this is going to be open to students and faculty. But what do you think is the benefit of studying this program at Ryerson and in Toronto?
Could I take this question?
For sure, go ahead.
I think, as one of the videos mentioned, is that Toronto is absolutely a living lab, and to be able to study about the urban environment in an urban environment, like, it really doesn't get much better than that. And there are so many courses that are relating to Toronto and urban environments that it makes sense. So I think that's really wonderful that we're studying the environment that we're living in. I don't know if anyone wants to add on to that too.
I think that's a great note to end off things off at. It is 4 p.m. So I'd like to thank all of our presenters. I'd like to thank all of our students. And I'd like to thank you for joining us today on behalf of Ryerson University. We hope that you stay safe and that you have a great rest of your day. All right, we are going to shut off our audio and video, and we hope to see you at our any future sessions, not only this week, but beyond. Thanks, everyone.